Inclusive teaching, supporting all students in the college classroom. Introduction to Inclusive Teaching at Columbia University.
Welcome to Inclusive Teaching, supporting all students in the college classroom. My name's Amanda Jungles.
And I'm Chandani Patel, and we're the facilitators for this course. Amanda and I work very closely together. In fact, some people say we share a brain.
We're the only ones that say that. We work at the Center for Teaching and Learning, or the CTL, at Columbia University.
The CTL supports all instructors on campus in their teaching development needs. In 2017, we published a guide for inclusive teaching, which lays out 5 evidence-based principles that we believe are key to creating an inclusive classroom.
Since that time, the guide has been accessed by thousands of people across the globe. And we haven't stopped there. We've continued to develop our resources by hosting workshops, delving into the literature, and working with our colleagues here at the center.
We're excited to share this online course with you because it will allow us to unpack the guide in more detail with expert interviews, reflection activities, and strategies that you can apply every day in your classroom.
We want to tell you a little bit about us. I'm from Minnesota and grew up in a place that wasn't particularly diverse. When I was a doctoral student in sociology at Georgia State University, I stepped into my first role as TA and found that my students had vastly different life experiences than what I was expecting or prepared for. Working with these students required I think differently about my teaching practices. This was a challenge at first, but I learned very quickly that my students brought with them diverse experiences that improved the quality of my class. I became a stronger and more effective teacher when I taught the students I had, instead of hypothetical ones, and when I treated their diversity and difference as an asset in the classroom. I try to bring that perspective and the desire to honor and make room for all students' experiences and diverse ways of knowing into my work at the CTL and with Columbia faculty and instructors.
Now a little bit about me. I grew up in New Jersey in a town that was very diverse. I have a PhD in comparative literature from the University of Chicago. I think often about how my own experiences inside and outside the classroom inform the conversations I have with faculty about creating inclusive classrooms. As a woman of color within the higher education context, I know firsthand how strong feelings of belonging or disinclusion can impact students' learning experiences. As the child of immigrants, I was in many classroom settings where I felt like an outsider, but I benefited from teachers who took an interest in supporting my growth as an individual. These experiences shape my commitment to helping instructors cultivate teaching practices that enable all of their students to thrive. For me, inclusive teaching is a foundational framework for teaching in an increasingly diverse and globally connected society, one that recognizes and affirms the myriad backgrounds, perspectives, and identities individuals bring to learning environments.
Now we want to share a definition of inclusive teaching that we use here at the CTL from Christine Hawkins. Inclusive learning and teaching in higher education refers to the ways in which pedagogy, curricula, and assessment are designed to engage students in learning that is meaningful, relevant, and accessible to all. We like this definition because it focuses on a range of factors the instructor has control over, and the ways in which choices can have positive impacts on student learning. But let's break the definition down a little bit more.
Let's start with the first part of the definition. Pedagogy refers to the ways in which the content is being taught, through lecture, discussion, or hands-on learning activities. The curricula is the content that is being taught, and assessments are the ways we are determining our students' learning, through exams, final papers, oral presentations, or other types of performances.
And now let's talk about the second part of that definition. Optimal student learning happens when students can make meaning from the material, when they can link the course content and activities to their real-life experiences or the real world. Learning is relevant when students can clearly connect it to content in previous class sessions or other courses they've taken. For example, they can see how this week's content is connected to past course content or how this class fits into their major. Finally, learning must be accessible for all students, which ensures all students can engage with the course materials and the assessments to fully demonstrate their learning.
Before we get started with the course, we invite you to watch a video from our campus. Here's how some of our students and faculty talk about inclusive teaching.
What does inclusive teaching mean to you?
To me, inclusive teaching means including diverse cultural experiences and backgrounds, as well as the diverse personalities that exist out there into the classroom. At Columbia, students come from an international background and a variety of cultural experiences. How could they perceive this particular theory, for example? I don't think we can foster critical thinking without being inclusive in the classroom.
I'm a teacher of art history, and I think it's a matter of putting the question of inclusion and exclusion on the table. And art history is a really great way to do that because art history is always a question of inclusion and exclusion.
For me, the fact that my Hispanic Studies department often focuses on Spain, I really do appreciate when professors in that department take the time to include intersectional identities of Latin America.
Inclusive teaching often requires a space in which students feel empowered enough to speak, and yet no one student is the spokesperson for their identity or various identities.
I think inclusive teaching is the attitude that, as your teacher, it's my responsibility to help you if I can.
Just letting people know that, it's good to ask questions, and really great thinkers ask great questions too. Really great problem solvers ask great questions. And that's the first step to really success in anything.
Positivity. Positivity and a constructive attitude towards the error. Because the error in a foreign language class is the student's biggest enemy. So if you build a safer environment where the error is an indicator of the language process and the language learning and not a lack of proficiency, students are more willing to participate, more willing to learn, and feel like they can do more and achieve more within the classroom.
Inclusive teaching for me is a moral imperative, and it's a mindset. It's a way of thinking and behaving that I believe can be taught and practiced in the classroom.
The meaning of inclusive teaching, I think, has changed for me over time. When I was an undergraduate at Columbia in the 1990s, a lot of the focus was on how do we diversify the offerings of the university? How do we diversify things like the core curriculum or other areas of the university's instruction? And I think that now, as a faculty member in the astronomy department, I see that there's been a flourishing of centers and programs that address inclusivity intellectually, but I'm not sure that those efforts have really percolated throughout the university, and certainly not into my field, astronomy, or into the natural sciences. And so, for me, it remains a concern, how do we make our teaching more inclusive, even as our classrooms become more diverse?